Welcome to Dear Business Coach, the podcast. My name's Elizabeth. Find one thing to move your business forward today. With conversations, spotlights, interviews, articles, and free resources. Listen, follow, and subscribe on social media, Dear Business Coach pages and groups. Dear Business Coach podcast. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube. And don't forget Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. All it takes sometimes is one little thing to move your business forward today. And I am saying it's Paul Neal.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like we're recording. Okay. Well, so Paul Neal, thank you for coming to the Dear Business Coach podcast today. How are you doing?
Yeah. Hey, Elizabeth, thanks for having me. Doing great.
Wonderful. Well, listen, I've had a chance to get to know you a little bit, so you'll have to keep me on track about the important things here today. I do have the title of your book here, Unlease Your Business, Make the Real Estate Move That Entrepreneurs Often Miss. So I have quite a few things to ask you. So will you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in real estate finance, but I'm really an entrepreneur. I've had 6 businesses in my career, and some went really well, some not so much. Well, most of them did. One didn't during the dot bomb, or not dot bomb, the '08 great reset of the world. But I'm in good company, I think, there. Anyway, so real estate finance back to 1998, and most of my businesses were around that or in that tangentially. And so because I've been an entrepreneur and business owner and in real estate finance, many of my tribe and people that I've worked with and friends over the years are just business owners, entrepreneurs, that sort of thing. And I sort of noticed 2 different groups of them, 2 camps. One was in both being successful, but one was sort of heads down focused, growing their business, working in the business on their systems and all that. And they tended to lease their office space. And not just in the beginning, which is always a good idea because you're trying to figure out, your sea legs and, your trajectory and get some systems and things worked out. But over time, they just neglected to take the opportunity to actually buy any real estate to run their business from. And then the other camp, at some point along the way, would say, hey, we're sending thousands and thousands of dollars every single month to, our landlord, and we get, rent increases and all kinds of things. And so at some point, those people made a decision to say, hey, we're going to buy this space. And when you look at their sort of career trajectories over time, the camp that in most cases that bought the real estate ended up with a much stronger balance sheet. They had an asset right there that's grown and multiplied over time, whereas the other group did not. Even though they may have had a successful business and cash flowed well, they were limited. And so I became very fascinated on why one group would take the plunge, so to speak, and another would just kind of maybe hear about it and not really give it, the attention that it deserved at the point, and chose not to. And so we focused in the last few years on really helping business owners understand, the opportunity in front of them. If does it make sense? When does it make sense? When does it not make sense? And then what are the possible, risks and opportunities, and what are the opportunity costs and things that you're missing out on if you choose not to go that path? And so that's why we wrote the book.
Wow. Well, and I just mentioned to you a little bit ago that something that my father has been saying to me for a long time is that you need to own your own property. If coming from exactly the point of interest that you just highlighted, and I don't own my own property as far as my business owning a property. So I am a homeowner. And I also have started looking at personal real estate investing, just a single dwelling rental. And the first thing that I think about, right, when you say, okay, this is an asset for you, owning your own property as a business owner, it helps tremendously with your balance sheet. I immediately conceptually understand that. And yet my next thing to say is, but I just bought a water heater for my house, and I don't know what the next expense is going to be. That might be the only thing that would be stopping me is unanticipated expenses because I don't know anything about managing a property.
Sure, sure. Well, so it's important to go into a property acquisition from a position of strength. And so, liquidity, we talk about your balance sheet, liquidity is important. And when you have a business, period, because if you have a growing business, it's going to consume cash anyway, because you have to hire people and advertise and maybe bring in equipment and upgrade systems and all that. And so you have great cash demands. But you still are going to have an expense. And outside of payroll, generally speaking, the biggest expense you're going to have is going to be rent if you have any kind of facility at all. Most of the people that we deal with have businesses that are in the revenue range of 500,000 to 20 million. So we're not talking, huge companies, but businesses that are generating some cash flow. You've been in business for a few years, so you have a consistent track record, and you have a little bit of money in the bank. I mean, obviously you got to have a little bit for your business, reserves and dry powder. But so interestingly enough, you talk about residential real estate and you own your own home, and so commercial is completely different from that. Um, and so when you buy your first home, you think about it, you go out, and most people don't have a lot of money, so they're able to qualify for low down payment, that sort of thing. And they get in on their first home, and then it may appreciate over time, and maybe their business or their career improves and they get some more money and they want to upgrade the house. Maybe they got a family. Well, now they've got some equity in the house and maybe their income has gone up. And so they have a little more margin to be able to do things like that, where in the beginning they didn't. So owner occupied commercial real estate is somewhat similar, where if you go to the local bank, saunter on down to the folks that you have a relationship with, that maybe you set up your original business accounts with, they will say they will loan you money to buy the building, but in most cases they're going to want 20 to 25% down, and their terms are pretty short. And so that's a nonstop that's a hard stop for most people, because again, now we're talking about, we might have some reserves in the bank, we might have some cash for working capital, but if I'm going to buy $1 million building, you're telling me I need to sink $200,000 to $250,000 into the bricks and mortar that we both know you're not going to get out, anytime soon. It's not very liquid. And so it turns people away and they move on. But the reality is, what they don't know is, if you have an owner user space where your business is going to go in and occupy a certain percentage of it, at least half essentially, then you can get that real estate for 0 to 5% down, 10% down. It's almost like a first-time home buyer kind of buying your own home. There are programs that are out there that if your business is profitable and it's cash flowing well, that you can move into that. Most typically, we see 10% for a lot of business owners. And even if you can put more money down, we don't suggest it, because we think that it's a good idea to have money in the bank that's there for reserves if the water heater goes bad, to your point, or you need a new roof, or whatever, or you have an opportunity to expand again and maybe hire somebody or whatever. You need to have that to grow the business. So the real estate piece is not, it becomes a second business, but it should become a passive part of your business enterprise. It's not something that should take your focus off of what you're there to do, and that is your hedgehog, and your main event, which is growing your business and meeting the needs of your clients and your team and all that to be profitable. The real estate is passive. So, like for instance, a great example of that is, I've got a great friend, Kathy, who's an OBGYN. She bought her own building about 15 years ago. She had a practice, but the practice was already performing well. She'd had some history. She had some experience there. And over the last 12, 13 years, she paid the building off. And it was just kind of a no-brainer, because she had to pay rent to somebody. She could just assume pay it herself.
Are you an executive or team leader in the Roanoke Valley, Virginia area? Hi, my name's Elizabeth Walker. I'm inviting you to a special one-day only event at the downtown Jefferson Center here in Roanoke, Virginia, a leadership and comedy experience called The Power of Laughter Masterclass with Clayton Fletcher, author and stand-up comedian. Visit the QR code in the ad and visit walkerconsultingworkshops.com. Early bird pricing now through September 30th. Don't miss out.
And to your point about water heaters and things like that, a lot of tenants, a lot of leases are structured in a way, triple net leases, where you still have to pay for that sort of thing as the tenant. So you have to pay to get the air conditioning fixed. You have to pay for, the water heater and that sort of thing. Now they're not all like that, but a lot of them are. So just because you're renting doesn't mean you get away from that, right?
Okay.
But so Kathy's making these payments, and instead of seeing rent escalations going up every year at 3%, and then a possibility where maybe her landlord won't renew the lease after 3 or 4 years because maybe they've got in their opinion, a higher use for the space, maybe a larger client, or maybe they're going to change the use of the building, maybe mow it down and put something else there. So she was in control with a fixed payment that she locked in when she bought the building. She locked the price of the building in when she bought it 15 years ago. And so in terms of her obligation to it, right? But so she didn't have to worry about rent increases. She didn't have to factor that in. But the cool thing about it was over that 15-year period of time, she paid off the building. And so recently, she was approached by a larger medical group and who's buying up the smaller groups. And they offered her the opportunity to buy her practice and give her the opportunity to stay on as the physician for a few years, or as long as really she wanted to stay on. But she was approaching retirement anyway, and she's like, "This is a great deal. They're going to buy me out, buy my practice, and they're going to allow me to work here for as long as I want." And so I got this big lump sum. I still have a salary, and oh, by the way, I own the building. They don't want to move the practice because all the patients are coming there. They're comfortable with it. It's in a local area. All the staff is coming there. They want to be as minimally intrusive to the business as they can be. And so now they're paying her a nice 5-figure rental for her building for as long as she chooses to rent the building back to them. So that was an asset that 15 years would have passed either way. And had she just said, well, I'm going to go hit the easy button, I'm just going to renew the lease and, forego the potential opportunity or the risks of owning, because I'm afraid that maybe the water heater could go bad or something that I might have to potentially budget for, in the process, which is easily done. That's easily done.
Yeah.
Then now she's in a much stronger situation than another physician that may sell the practice and have a nice payday, a nice payout and all that, but no asset. So with this building, she can continue to lease it back, or if she decides at some point she could sell it, she could sell it to them and take a capital gain. She could do what's called a 1031 exchange. And so she could take all the gain that she's had in that building and roll it into some other type of real estate to defer taxation, and theoretically could then pass it to her kids when she dies in a stepped up basis and avoid taxation potentially altogether based upon the tax laws at the time. But so all kinds of benefits, but yeah, you do have to realize that you might have a water heater go bad. You might have some issues. Here's the other thing too, Elizabeth, is that, if you buy the building for $1 million today, next year it might be worth $950. Okay. Right. But probably in 5 to 10 years, it's going to be worth 1.2 or 1.3 or 1.4, because none of us has, a crystal ball, and we don't know any one particular area, what's going to happen in the short run. But generally speaking, in the long run, real estate appreciates in value. We all know that inflation is here to stay. It's never going to go away. Even the Fed says we want 2% inflation. That's their target. And they don't want deflation. And so everything is geared towards the inflation of assets like real estate. And so there's a lot of reasons to consider it, and particularly if you don't have to take all of your money off the sideline and stick it into the building, because that is a nonsense. I would say, no, that's a bad place to start, if you had to do that.
Yeah. Right. So, well, I'm already sold. Right. So I feel like talking to you makes me feel a whole lot differently, see it differently, feel a lot differently. You said earlier that there are you said that there are some decision making points, right? Or some times when it might be a good fit, sometimes when it might not be, might not be, right? So you said A, does it make sense, and B, when would it not make sense, and then when would it make sense? So it feels like you have a way for me to put some things down on paper and sort of make a rational choice. With your help, I can come to that conclusion that is this a good time, right? Is timing a big deal?
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's what we do. And just to shout it out, if anyone wants some help, you can go to our website, ownyourbuildingnow.com.
Thank
Get a
you.
copy of the book, get a copy of the book there for free too, and delivered. You just pay for the shipping and the printing, but ownyourbuildingnow.com. You can get the book or schedule a strategy session call with us. But essentially, yeah, I mean, there's some areas that we look at. We look at the financial history of the business to see, how long have you been in business? How has it been operating? What do the last couple of years look like? And then, and almost as important, what do the next 2 to 3 years look like? What does the next 5 years look like? What's your goal? What are you trying to do?
Mm-hmm.
Are you trying to grow in one specific area? Are you trying to maybe be in multiple locations? Maybe that's your strategy. And we have people that actually do that too. They buy the real estate in multiple locations, and that becomes quite the nice little investment over time. Do you have a pretty solid track record in terms of repeat and referral business? So you've got a good baseline, coming in. Do you have some reserves in the bank, some cash? That's important. What's your timeline? Again, I talked about that because if you think you're going to be either potentially the business is not going to be doing that well in a few years because maybe you're in a niche industry that's kind of here today, gone tomorrow, like the donut. Remember the little donut companies and the cupcake people, and they were all the rage for about 2 years, and and I could only eat so many $5 cupcakes that were like giant, and I pretty much figured that was on a short leash. But But if you're like a service-based professional, maybe you have a plumbing company or a HVAC, or you're a builder, or you're a professional, a CPA, or a veterinarian, or a dentist, or whatever, that you're going to be in an area, you're locally, and you're serving there, and you plan on building your business out there for the long run, then that's a box I would definitely check as, hey, you've got a great future, and it's something to think about planting your flag in. If you have some credit issues and challenges and things in your history, then it might have to work through some of that. It's not necessarily a non-starter. We tell people all the time that we work with that, we want to know all the skeletons in your closet, because financial skeletons anyway, because the lenders are going to find out. It's in 2024, you can't hide anything. And the last thing you want to do is find out, a week before you're supposed to close. And if they find that out, it's a done deal, because lenders do not like surprises.
Are you a LinkedIn user? If you are, you can join me for LinkedIn Live Audio with Elizabeth every week, usually on Mondays at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I will have a LinkedIn Live Audio where we talk about podcasting for executives who speak and podcasting for team leaders who speak. These are the themes that are currently running. If that sounds like something you're interested, visit me, Elizabeth Walker at Work, on my LinkedIn profile.
So we like to try to ferret that out up front. In fact, we have a 53 questionnaire that we go over with people, and we try to pull out a lot of the details of the business and any other potential issues that are hanging out there. Because again, you want to know well in advance before you start looking for property and going into contracts and putting earnest money down and all that, and telling your staff, your team, hey, we're going to move over here, and that might not be the case. And so those need to be, sort of squared away. If you are you married or you have a significant other, then I think that it's important that everyone's on the same sheet of music, that we know, hey, we're thinking about doing this. Again, I've seen deals go south because Um, one of the married spouses knew that they were going to buy a building and the other didn't, and they didn't find out until like the week of closing, and it's a disaster. So we're all about being upfront, making sure everything's out on the table and you're clear. I think you need to be in a lease situation where you're 6 to 12 to 18 months out. If it's 30 days before your lease renewal, that timeline is really way too short unless you can get an extension on your lease. Because when you're buying property, I mean, once we square away your financials, once you find a property and go into contract on that property, it's not like buying a personal residence where you can close typically in 30 days or so. It's a 90-day process. So it's 90 days from that point because of some of the due diligence things that have to happen. It might be 90 days to get your financial house and everything in order and squared away. And it might be 90 days to find a property, so you're talking, right there, 6 to 9 months just to kind of get all that stuff in order from the time you start to the time you close. So you need some time, some wiggle room to do it effectively without pressure to make a great decision. And then if you're thinking about building, because building is another option. We have clients, we just did one the other day. It's a 12,000 square foot warehouse. And the cool thing about this guy, Adam's a high-end remodeler, and he's moving his business from a rental location. He's going to take 8,000 square feet, and he's already lined up 2 tenants for the other 4,000 feet because he's building it. And they're going to pay the rent that they pay at market rates is going to pay almost the entire mortgage payment. So the cool thing is he's got a growing business. And so if it continues to grow the way he thinks it's going to grow, then he just has the option of not renewing one or both of their leases when that lease comes due. So he can just expand into his building, when the business sort of demands that. But so he's building from ground up, but that's a longer process. Now that might be 18 months out because you have to find land and you have to get, plans and things like that. And then the process to build takes, based on the building, 6, 9, 12 months as well. So those are some considerations to think.
Well, it's actually really fascinating. Okay, so ownyourbuildingnow.com.
Correct. That's it. Yeah.
So if I want to reach out to you, I can message you or contact you on LinkedIn. What's the best way?
Yeah, I'm an anti-social media guy.
Okay.
I'm on LinkedIn and all that, but really the best way is if you go to ownyourbuildingnow.com, there's a button you can connect there and schedule a 15, 20 minute, conversation. And that way we can do it legitimately. I get about 300 emails a day and, like everybody else, and I'm trying to figure out how to get down to like no emails a day. Right. So I have team members handling all that, but yeah, I mean, that's the best thing. And really, it's I would say start with a book, or we even have on that website, there's a little like assessment you can take, a 2-minute assessment. It's free. And it's, I think 20 questions. So you can do it in like 2 minutes. And it basically helps you make the decision, hey, does buying a building for my business make sense for me? And it's 4 key areas it talks about, and then gives you a customized report back to kind of frame it. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And that's a neat starting point, just to kind of get some information. But yeah, if you're seriously in the, thinking about this is something that you might want to do and not miss some of the opportunities, then I'd say get the book or schedule an appointment and we could have, happy to have that conversation.
Yes. Well, let's do that. And I hope to have you back again because I have a lot more to ask you. I think we're out of time. Well, Paul Neal, thank you so much for coming to the Dear Business Coach podcast, and we will talk again very soon. I hope you have a fantastic afternoon.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I enjoyed it. You too.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for joining me today. My name's Elizabeth in Floyd, Virginia. This has been an episode of Dear Business Coach.